Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Restricted Republic. My name is Justice Knight, today filling in for Lisa Haven. Can't thank you enough for allowing me to be here and present what we're calling From Toilet Paper to Tyranny in 9 simple steps. How COVID-19 has rocketed the Republic to socialism, and it all happened in under a year. Decades of history unraveled before our very eyes. And let me give you a blast from the past here. This isn't the first time something like this has happened.
Of all the shortages we had, there's a gasoline shortage. You know what else is disappearing from the supermarket shelves? Toilet paper. Ha, you can laugh now. There is an acute shortage of toilet paper.
That skit, 1973. Setting up a run on toilet paper, creating a shortage. Different than today, however. An illustration of how media can push a reaction. How media can force an outcome. There are just 9 steps from freedom to socialism to societal breakdown. This published on Fox News. This will be on part 2 of our broadcast today. But before we go any further, Lisa asked me to give a shout out to her partner, NobleGoldInvestments.com. Turn your traditional IRA into a gold and silver backed IRA. And for every qualified account, get this amazing gold coin. Once again, that's NobleGoldInvestments.com, a partner of Lisa's for a very long time. Please hop over, check them out, because right now, all of us need to invest in our futures. Also, Lisa will put a link just above me. If you can click on it and subscribe to my channel, I certainly would appreciate it. And more importantly, if you can help share this video, assure you're subscribed to Lisa and get over to RestrictedRepublic.com, where we're going to continue the second half of this story and give you all the information necessary to understand what's occurring in this great republic and how quickly it's all changed. Once again, 14 days free on us, simply for joining. So I think we need to get a little background. As you've seen article after article, this on USA Today, coronavirus updates, Biden wants 100 days of mask wearing. California set for new stay-at-home order. U.S. passes 14 million cases. You've seen that headline everywhere. But the message can be confusing. Even if Biden was to take office, even his own officials confusing a narrative that they have pointed directly at Trump for so very long.
And now a member of President-elect Joe Biden's task force says a lockdown could help drive down case numbers.
Could lock down for 4 to 6 weeks. And if we did that, we could drive the numbers down. And then we could really watch ourselves cruising into the vaccine availability in the first and second quarter of next year.
So you heard it pretty clearly then. A lockdown of 4 to 6 weeks, one person potentially involved with the potential Biden administration. That was just one representative. Let's go to a second now as you become more confused of how this story may take shape.
Dr. Anthony Fauci appeared on Good Morning America this morning and responded to the possibility of a lockdown.
You know, I don't know. We would like to stay away from that, Robin, because there is no appetite for locking down on the American public. But I believe that we can do it without a lockdown.
It looks like the potential Biden administration is falling subject to the same things they blamed the Trump administration for: confusion and mixed messaging. But that's not all.
Well, I don't think this is a lockdown or not locking down. I think that's how we thought about this in this spring. But I think we've learned a lot since then about how this virus spreads and what we can do to reduce risk. And right now, the way we should be thinking about this is more like a series of restrictions that we dial up or down depending on how bad spread is taking place in a specific region. In New York City, for example, what you're seeing is them target their interventions down to the zip code.
We're just going to stop it there. 3 different messages. Lockdown, yes. Lockdowns, not necessary. Targeted lockdowns. Appears that if Biden administration was to become a reality, it would be even more confusing than the Trump administration. Of course, what else would we expect from our government officials? But moving forward, back to something near and dear to each of our hearts. If you walk through your supermarket and see the empty shelves and wonder why there's a run on toilet paper, as this article states, how the coronavirus created a toilet paper shortage. Many attribute the shortage to disruptions in the supply chain, but that's actually not true. It's all about panic buying. Panic created by, in many ways, the media. We're going to move forward a little bit. Remember the great toilet paper shortage of 1973? That caused by that original Johnny Carson clip, or was it? I mean, we should go to Snopes because they are the all-knowing. Oh, it's a mixture of truth. In December of 1973, Johnny Carson made a joke during his opening monologue of The Tonight Show. Well, that actually stemmed from a previous issue. Somebody in government putting out some information about a document that indicated, and as it says here on the screen, the government's National Buying Center had fallen far short of securing bids to provide toilet paper for its troops and bureaucrats. On December 11th, he issued another, more serious press release. The U.S. may face a serious shortage of toilet paper within a few months. We hope we don't have to ration toilet tissue. A toilet paper shortage is no laughing matter. No, actually, it's not a laughing matter because you're not connecting all the dots yet. We're seeing fights break out across the world.
Tensions flared at Woolworths Chullora around 7 o'clock this morning when 3 women became involved in a toilet paper tussle.
I just want 1 pack. No, not 1 pack.
Let's be honest, she was hoarding, panic buying. The lady just wanted 1 pack, but let's pull this back to more serious matters. You have in Japan actual curses being put on toilet paper to prevent people from buying them too quickly. You can't make it up. That's reality. But now how does this tie back into socialism and those 9 steps that we've been talking about? Well, when facing shortages, Venezuela takes over the toilet paper factory. Oh, maybe it's the socialization of production that we're talking about. No, that's, again, not really the case. And by the way, when the government did take over the production of toilet paper, it was 3 years until they had to supply back another highly functional government. No, rather, it's one of the final stages of socialism is a shortage of toilet paper. This published on Reason, all about Venezuela. We'll go into the article just a little bit. For Marx, capitalism would give way to socialism, which would give way to communism and the withering away of the state and all forms of repression and oppression. Perhaps one of the reasons that things never work out that way is that revolution craps out during the socialist phase. Literally. Venezuela has long been going through a prolonged shortage of all manners of consumer goods for several years, especially toilet paper, which is so scarce that black market rates are more than 5 times as high as supermarket prices. Now, the interesting part about that statement is the rise of the black market is actually one of the steps towards socialism. We're going to keep checking them off the list as we move through this broadcast and give you a very refined search in part 2. And you'll see here they go deeper into the black market and the rate of pay, and it states, recently, Venezuela officials have been stopping people from transporting essential goods across the country in an effort to stem the flow of contraband. So now, Camacho's guests could potentially have their toilet paper confiscated. That's right, before they even make it to the hotel. The hotels that were requiring you, by the way, here, to bring your own toilet paper. Don't think it's too far from the reality we can face now. Venezuela food shortages. No one can explain why a rich country has no food. And what happens when everything else fails? Well, that's right. They blame the CIA. Toilet paper, rice, and coffee have long been missing from stores as Venezuela president blames the CIA plot for chronic shortages. But that's right. Many states, many of you facing different levels of quarantine, different levels of lockdowns, different levels of restrictions, different levels of supply chain. This article, again, about the politics of quarantine in the 19th century, from its inception in the 14th century until the end of the 19th century, quarantine policy lacked, and don't worry, we're not going to go into great detail. There's one thing I want you to pull from this. The 14th century to the 19th century, quarantine policy lacked uniformity both within and between nation states. France proposed a meeting in 1834 at which the international standardization of quarantine could be discussed. And it was only in 1851 that the first international sanitary conference was convened, but it wasn't until 1893 that a compromise was reached concerning notification of disease and minimum and maximum periods of detention. You see the amount of time that transpired, an aggregation of how they wanted to handle quarantine. But yet, the Great Republic of America, in under a year, transitioned from 9 of the largest globalist steps that exist, from freedom to socialism, in under 365 days. Terrifying, yes. Reasoning, we're going to get into as we move forward. You see, it's not only here. Spain's socialist government advances law to indoctrinate from childhood. And what did they use to change the very education system? COVID. We'll move forward another step. Coronavirus socialism. This published on Forbes. Collectivized production. 2 months after Jamie Dimon said socialism doesn't work because governments can't properly allocate capital, Congress allocated $2.2 trillion via the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities CARES Act. And as they say here, left-leaning didn't do it alone. They're right. It was fairly a bipartisan as it gets. The CARES Act does some useful things. It helps workers and small businesses who had to close down to stop the virus from spreading. Lockdowns, however, counterbalance that. The new law gives the Treasury Department $454 billion to invest in a special purpose vehicle, jointly with the Federal Reserve. The Fed will then allocate or perhaps misallocate. Remember the 9 steps? Remember rocketing toward socialism? This is another one of those steps. $454 billion. Here's how 2 economists describe the arrangement in the Wall Street Journal. The expectation is that the central bank will leverage this money 10-1, enabling it to lend up to $4.54 trillion to companies. That sum is more than all U.S. commercial and industrial loans outstanding at the end of 2019, plus all new corporate bonds issued during 2019. These are staggering figures. Thus, if the capital is all deployed by the Fed and at rates that will surely crowd out private capital, all capital allocation in the U.S. in 2020 will be done by the Federal Reserve System, not by the capital markets. So what happens there? Well, that becomes power to some people. If, like Jamie Dimon, you fear social misallocation, Bernie Sanders should be the least of your worries. It's already happening on a massive scale, and we were heading that direction anyway. The coronavirus sped up the process. And where it will lead isn't clear yet, but it won't be anything you can plausibly call capitalism. More likely, we will get even more state-enforced corporatism with socialized losses and privatized profits. Mind you now, this was published on Forbes, and everything that they've stated is coming terrifyingly true. So let's jump back into the $2 trillion CARES Act. A response to COVID-19 is equivalent to 45% of all 2019 federal spending. You didn't hear me wrong. Those are the facts as they stand. So let's jump into this article now. There are just 9 steps from freedom to socialism to societal breakdown. Step 1, massive government spending. $2 trillion CARES Act. Plus, Joe Biden stating why Joe Biden's tax to rich plan is the wrong path for spending boost, despite the $400,000 earner pledge. Why is that so significant and critical? Because who's going to fund all this? Well, more than likely, it will be the wealthy, because everybody else will be out of a job, because small businesses will be demolished. And don't think this hasn't happened before. That's right. Argentina to hit the rich with wealth tax as COVID-19 costs rise. Would you like me to continue to tie everything into a nice little package for you, showing you that everything we state here on Restricted Republic is bound by facts and research? There's a reason for that. Because when you follow the little breadcrumbs towards socialism, they always tend to lead the same direction, a direction that truly none of us ever want to face. So now we're going to stop for a moment, going from toilet paper to tyranny, and these 9 steps from freedom to socialism. to societal breakdown. It's not a far leap in any stretch of the imagination. It's getting even worse with the second COVID-19 relief bill that everybody's working so feverishly to pass, because it's just going to result in more debt to the republic, more government spending, and ultimately an even faster curve to socialism. So now if you're interested in learning from toilet paper to tyranny and really going into detail on these 9 steps, including some dramatic footage from those facing the very ravaging elements of COVID-19, trying to protect their businesses, but yet how the very pandemic itself has changed the entire scale of everything. We're going to invite you over to Restrict the Republic now, 14 days absolutely free, simply for joining. It's imperative you know this information and understand how we have taken all 9 steps in under 365 days. If you haven't subscribed to Lisa, I certainly hope you will. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I certainly hope you will. Lisa will also leave a link below. Get over to Restrict the Republic now. Let us finish this video. Until next time, thank you again for allowing me to be here. Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out.